Welcome back, everyone. It would seem that Bob has gotten a feel for what it is we do around here and a general sense of what to look for. He's picked out some pretty decent videos the last few times, and we've gotten a few good laughs out of them, so I let him have free rein this week. No direction, I just told him to go out there and grab something interesting. So let's see what you brought for us, Bob.
A cold-blooded conspiracy?
What? No, look, that's a very important subject, and it definitely should be discussed, but you don't work for Sargon or Dave Cullen. We don't really do the news here. At least, not right now we don't. Covering this kind of stuff fairly requires more research time than I have, so I can't really do it justice. Besides, those two have already done a piece on this, and I encourage everyone to go watch those if you haven't already. Links are in the description. I did have one minor disagreement with Sargon about congressional intelligence committees, though. He seemed to be implying that they didn't know about this stuff. So far, we haven't seen any direct ties to congressional leaders, but I wouldn't be surprised if that comes out in the rest of these leaks. I think Sargon is being generous. Either that or he has more trust in elected officials than I do. We'll just have to wait and see, but Sargon and Dave are far better at the news than I am, so I'll leave that stuff to them. What else have you got?
Feminist with the bloodthirst of one of their own?
Well, I don't really have enough to say for a whole video on this, but I suppose I can say a few words anyway. Poor little Emma is finally discovering for herself just how cancerous feminism really is. This is her first glimpse at the truly vindictive nature of feminists when you don't agree with them on every little thing. Even when you're the front man, or well, front woman in this case, I guess, they will turn on you the minute you do something the hive mind doesn't approve of. Hermione is learning the hard truth. Feminism is not about empowering women with choice. It is a stick to beat other women with. It's about collectivism. One woman is all women, so there is no choice outside the group's choice. Here, listen to your Saint Sarkeesian.
This attitude is often referred to as choice feminism. Choice feminism posits that each individual woman determines what is empowering for herself, which might sound good on the surface, but this concept risks obscuring the bigger picture and larger fundamental goals of the movement by focusing on individual women with a very narrow individual notion of empowerment. It erases the reality that some choices that women make have an enormous negative impact on other women's lives.
Tough way to live, Emma. Are you sure this is the movement you want to stand up for your whole life? You're still young. You could still jump ship and join an actual equality movement. I'm sure with a little time we'd all learn to forgive you your childish ignorance. Learn and grow, or remain foolish and shackled to a bunch of screaming banshees that will tear you to shreds the moment you make a choice they don't like. Your choice. You bring anything else, Bob?
Blood-curdling screeches from a pack of rabid harpies?
I don't know. Maybe we can mine a few laughs out of that. Let's see. First, let's be clear about what this so-called strike actually is and what the organizers wanted women to do. So let's see that. Okay, so as we can see here, this strike consists of women doing these three things. Wear red, don't work, paid or unpaid labor, and don't spend money. This was the great plan that is going to bring men, the country, and the all-powerful patriarchy to its knees. This is how they were going to make us surrender to their demands, which were what exactly? Well, let's have a look at their website and see just what it is they were hoping to accomplish with this so-called strike. I mean, if you're going on strike, then you have a list of demands that you want to be met, right? That's pretty much how a strike works. Workers want something, so they make a list of their specific demands, then strike until the company or government gives in or at least becomes willing to negotiate. So let's see what they want. Well, that's convenient. They must get asked this question a lot. What is the goal of a day without a woman? The goal is to highlight the economic power and significance that women have in the United States and global economies, while calling attention to the economic injustices women and gender nonconforming people continue to face. We play an indispensable role in the daily functions of life in all of society through paid and unpaid, seen and unseen labor. Okay, first, let me address the wearing red part. Where I live, this is done every Friday during football season. It's called Red Friday. Men and women wear red on those days to show support for our hometown football team. So, on behalf of that team and the nation of fans who support them, I thank you for your added support during the off season. Nothing else to say about that, really. Wearing red is a pointless gesture that actually does nothing at all. So let's move on to address the meat of this. You want to highlight the economic power of women. You're going to accomplish this by not working and not spending money for one day. Well, dear ignorant organizers, perhaps you should have taken an economics or business class before planning this, because some simple basic understandings of how these things work might illustrate just how pointless a single day's strike is. For starters, let's focus on the money you're not spending. For most businesses, a single day without sales will not be even noticed because they don't balance books or project profits based on a single day. They do so monthly, quarterly, annually, etc., depending on the business type. In fact, the only type of business I can think of that would even notice a single day drop would be food service type businesses. You know, restaurants, coffee shops, that kind of thing. A single day without any business would make an impression on those, but a very minor impression at best, as their monthly profits would perhaps drop by as much as, say, 3%, assuming that everything else remains the same for the rest of the month. However, as this is only women striking, not men, they will not have a total lack of sales on that day, merely a drop of some undetermined percentage. Let's be generous and assume 60% of their business is women then, and we get a drop of about 2% for the month. Of course, this also impacts the wait staff at these places, who will see a drop in tips that day, and they are, pause for irony alert, mostly women. For pretty much any other type of business, this drop wouldn't be noticed at all because you either purchased what you needed the day before or bought it the day after, meaning the spike in profits on those days would easily offset the drop on the day of the strike, resulting in absolutely no noticeable difference at all. But that's not all. You see, it wasn't all women who joined your little publicity stunt. For example, here's one lovely woman who didn't participate in your crap. It was really only women on your side of the political and ideological aisle that did this. Assuming that it was all of them, which we know it wasn't, but let's be generous. Let's start with all women who voted for Clinton, since it was, after all, just another anti-Trump protest. That's 54% of women voters. Note I said voters, not all women. Important distinction because remember, there were only about 120 million votes this time around, which is just a tad less than 60% of eligible voters in the US. So any way you slice it, we're still not talking about even the majority of women. Now, we can narrow this even further by assuming it was feminists who took part in this, because all you really have to do is listen to the rhetoric. It's just full of feminist SJW talking points, which gives us a much smaller minority, as only about 18% of Americans identify as feminists, and that includes males. So feminist women is actually even smaller than that. And of course, as we saw, even some feminists did not take part in this public fiasco. But let's not spend all our time negotiating through statistics to get to a real number, though, because that's really not the point here at all anyway. The point is just simply this. As a percentage of the overall population, this strike was an extremely tiny number of women. Next, the other side of the equation, production. Part of what makes a strike successful is the impact workers have on the decline in a company's production. In this case, we're talking about, at best, 2 out of every 10 women striking, which could be bothersome to a company, but how many of these strikers don't have jobs anyway? Striking from a job you don't have doesn't cause any impact on anyone. Further, considering the majority of your supporters are young college students, it's safe to guess that production impact felt by any business was next to nothing. Further, those that did have jobs and missed work in most cases will either have extra work to do when they return, or that workload was simply covered by another worker who did their job and got a nice little bonus from some overtime for doing yours too. So again, production impact next to nothing. So your goal of highlighting women's economic power is deeply flawed. A single day off will not highlight that at all. You would need to drag this out to at least a week, perhaps a month, to have any real economic impact. Further, this has absolutely no chance of success unless you could manage to get all women, or at least a significant majority of them, which of course you can't, as only a small percentage of them even agree with you. In other words, you have highly, and I mean very, very highly, overestimated your group's economic impact. As for the rest of your mission statement here, it's just buzzwords and fluff. There is no specific goal or demand to address here, which makes it utterly pointless in regards to a strike because a company couldn't even begin to give in to your demands if you can't even articulate exactly what they are. Things like freedom from gender norms, expectations, and stereotypes are so vague as to be completely irrelevant in a negotiation. If you indeed want action on these things, you're going to have to outline exactly what actions you want to happen, or you're just pissing into the wind. Even if we were willing to give you what you wanted, we cannot do so because you haven't told us what actions you'd even like for us to take. In other words, you can fuck right off with this shit. We will not bow to nebulous rhetoric. When you get your shit together and decide on something specific, by all means, let us know and we can discuss its merits or lack thereof. But we're not going to even bother listening to a fluid and ever-changing list of buzzwords that have no identifiable goal beyond put a woman in charge because vagina. Well, fuck right off with that shit. Now let's go see what the press had to say. As noted here, they are also demanding equal justice under the law and that women receive pay that's on par with what men receive for performing similar work. Yep, the motherfucking wage gap beast that just won't fucking die no matter how many arrows we put in its ass. I'm so not even going to bother with that one. Debunked over and over and over again, so no need for me to say it another time. It's a myth, and we all know it by now. Repetition doesn't magically make it come true. But, equal justice under the law, huh? Are you sure that's what you want? I mean, I agree you don't have that right now, and I absolutely would love for you to get that equality, but something tells me you're not going to like what that means. See? Now, which way would you feminists like to go on this one? More time for women or less time for men? You can pick, but equality under the law means one or the other. I'm a fair-minded person. I'll accept either one. Next, how about a word from the aspiring feminist pope? So, you don't want to shut down the economy.
If women aren't demanding equal pay, they better start listening, because if women decide one day that we all don't go to work, we can paralyze this country economically.
Let's see that mission statement again. Highlight the economic power and significance of women. But the object for us isn't that we hope to shut down the whole economy. So you just want to let us know you could. You know what that sounds like, Linda? Sounds an awful lot like a threat. You know who else makes their political points with threats? Terrorists. I mean, that's pretty much the definition of a terrorist. I guess that's what we get from a anti-Semitic terrorist apologizing, Sharia promoting, peaceful, moderate Muslim woman though, right? Threats for political gain. Better get your little cabal to go change the definition of a terrorist real quick. Otherwise, ordinary people might start to put two and two together and see what you really are. That's it for this time, folks. All links and references are in the description. There's really not a whole lot left to say about this strike, really. I'm sure we can all see that it accomplished nothing and had little to no noticeable impact on anything. I mean, in my personal life, I didn't notice a damn thing at all. However, I'm also sure the propaganda pieces are going to be rolling off the presses any time now to convince us otherwise. Don't believe it, folks. This thing did absolutely nothing. I would like to leave you all with an amusing little piece I found the other day written by Judgy Bitch. Her name, not mine. Lots of thought-provoking facts in here for all these feminists who seem to think that men aren't worth shit.
Your guest waits in the study for you, sir.
Vintage?
A positive from 2000. A very good year, sir.
If you'll excuse me, I'll see you all next time.